And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here. And ladies and gentlemen, I am very proud to say I am back with another AFL fan series. And this year, I thought, let's talk to some Australians. And today, I have a very, very special guest actually coming from here in the States over in Richmond, Virginia. And that is Mr. Aaron. I forgot to ask you how you say your last name, just to double check.
So it's Trusler, Trusler.
All right, Aaron, it is great to meet you, sir. How are things going out in Richmond, Virginia, and with you and the Richmond Spiders?
It's going great. So obviously, we're 2-3 at the moment. So we started off like a house on fire. Had some really big wins. I punted all right as well my first game, so it was looking good. And then a heartbreaking loss to Villanova, and then another heartbreaking loss to Virginia Tech. Sort of got us on a bit of a losing streak. But we've got James Madison this week, which will be a massive game, crosstown rival. Another Aussie there, Harry O'Kelly, good mate of mine. So very excited to see that. So, yeah, halfway point of the year, let's ready to go.
All right, great to hear. Keep up the great work punting. Trust me, many Americans love the Aussie style of punting. We have one here in Iowa, Tory Taylor, but that's for another discussion. So you kind of went into a little bit of how you're here now, but tell us just a little bit about who you are, Aaron, where you kind of grew up, and what's your life outside of footy.
Yeah, well, outside of footy, so I have mum and dad, my little brother, little sister. Aussie rules has been in our family like our whole life. So my grandfather, his name is Alan Trusler. He actually played for the Western Bulldogs in 53 to 55. So I guess for our whole family, like extended family on dad's side, footy has been, I guess, like a religion, like it is with American football to you guys as well. It's very much the same thing with Australian rules football. So I guess that kicking and all of that sort of stuff has been ingrained in us for a long, long time. And obviously that spiraled my love. I guess I was telling you earlier, like Aussie rules was I guess one of my first loves, and it's ingrained in us for our whole life. So
And
that's
that
how it
is a
began.
and that is a great transition to my next question. One of my next questions, I like asking this, especially with Aussies, is what is your favorite thing about football?
My favorite thing about Australian rules football is like I'm not very big. I'll be 5'8" at, like on my best day, and I have just as much of an impact as someone who could be 6'7". And I could be as fast as I want. You can be as slow as you want. You can be as skillful. There is a position for every single type of body type, ability, and I think that's why Australian rules is so good and it's so diverse. You can really master so many skills, and no matter how much you keep improving, there's definitely another skill to I guess master. Like in this sport, it's not you specialize in one thing. Like as a punter, you catch and you punt, and you don't really need to work on anything else. But in Australian rules football, you can't have that mindset. You have to just keep leveling up. You have to make sure your fitness is good, that your speed is good. So for me, I think I just like how diverse it is and how you need to just keep working on so many different skills. Makes you a very well-rounded athlete.
Yeah, I completely agree. I coach a team here in town, and it's one of the things I teach a lot of my American players. I said, you can always get better at something, whether it's handball, whether it's kicking, whether it's tackling, whether it's positioning, different things like that. So you said you love footy, but I gotta ask this, since footy has been in your life for most of your life, what's your earliest footy memory?
My goodness, earliest footy memory, I would say, like from a really young age, I used to have like a stuffed football, like a really like small little football, and it was red, white, and blue, and it was like a Western Bulldogs colored theme, I guess. And so we had these two big sliding doors in our house. And my first memories of all of that, like being really, really young, I'm talking maybe 3 or 4, would be like pretending that I'm playing for the Western Bulldogs and kicking that little soft ball through the sliding doors and sort of playing little games in my head. Now, obviously, then that spiraled into doing Oz kick and playing at school level. But yeah, my very first memory, and I'm sure that football's still in my house back home in Australia. But yeah, it was that little stuffed red, white, and blue football.
Awesome. That is an amazing story. That's great to hear. And my next question, and I think you've kind of already given it away by a few of your answers, but I gotta ask, what's your club, and how did you come to support them? I think we kind of answered this, but I gotta hear it again.
Yeah, no sweat. So yeah, Western Bulldogs is our team that we play for. I say our because in our household, if you didn't barrack for the Western Bulldogs, you'd probably have to find another household to live in. So just having to follow our grandfather. It did help for me. I did play at Footscray for 2 years in the VFL, so there was just so many connections for me to barrack for the red, white, and blue.
That's awesome. I got to ask this, and I've heard that story before, that there's that a family connection of, well, you cheer for you barrack for this team or you're out of the house. Did you have anybody in the family that bucks the trend and supports another team?
No, my brother and sister would not dare at all. They wouldn't even get near it. So, no, we're all through and through Western Bulldogs fans. We love the club. It is an amazing club. Being there for 2 years as well affirmed how great of the club is. It's not just about football. It's a family. You know, there's many guys in that team that I still connect with, especially in the VFL team, obviously. But, yeah, it's a great club. It really is.
Yeah, an incredible club, especially nowadays, having so much success, especially this last season. So going off that, we heard your earliest memory. What was the first Western Bulldogs thing that you received for Christmas as a gift? Like, can you remember what the first thing you got that was Western Bulldogs specifically?
I would say it would have been a jumper, like a jersey. I actually think I might have one of them, like, in the household, because it still has lease plan on it, which is like a 2005 sponsor of the Western Bulldogs. So it would have been like a jersey like that. That would have been the first gift that I got.
That is awesome. So for me, being an American, it's always tough to be an Aussie Rules fan because of the change in time. I mean, a lot of the games are happening between 11 and 4 in the morning, but for me, I'm crazy. I get up. I mean, most of the fans have listened to, I get up at 4 in the morning to watch my team, to watch my team play. So for me, I'm a diehard fan. I live for the game. Describe to me your fandom of footy. I think I kind of know, but I want to hear it from you.
Oh, it's definitely changed. I think when you're a younger kid, you have that crazy fanatic that you'll do anything for football. All you want to do throughout the week is play football and learn about football. As you get older, I think it becomes more, you're thinking about the game a bit more. When I started playing, in the Sandringham Dragons and then throughout Footscray, my fandom went from loving the Dogs to actually loving football, because you understand how much effort is put in. And then obviously, like, I know a few guys in the AFL now. So my love for teams, like, I know a few blokes at Sydney, a good friend of mine, Jordan Boyd's at Carlton. So, like, there's parts of my heart now that are in different areas of different teams, and of Jack Higgins as well as another one at St Kilda. So, I follow them. So you come to a point where you're not just fanatic about your team, you end up just loving the game. And as much as it hurts, like watching Melbourne play in that grand final, I realized that, like, they have a very good brand of football. And I was disappointed, obviously, the Dogs lost, but to lose to a team that has an incredible way of moving the ball, unselfish manner, you go, okay, you've just got to appreciate that level of football.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I haven't said it to you, but most of the people that listen to it know I am a Sydney Swans supporter. So 2016, I kind of had the same feeling that you did. As disappointed as I was the Swans lost, I was happy for the Doggies supporters because it had been so long. And it was such the bittersweet moment for me, because I was happy for the Dogs fans that they got the drought over with and they did so well. So I know exactly how you feel there. And I know growing up, you played VFL a little bit, but what was the first Western Bulldogs game you ever attended?
Wow, I'm not too sure. I would have been maybe 6 or 7. Like, my first memories of going to the Dogs games were always St Kilda, because around the time where I was, old enough to remember, was that time where St Kilda were really good and the Dogs were really good, and they always played in a prelim. So
that's awesome.
I remember that those were my, like, earliest memories of football, and it was always heartbreaking because the Dogs kept losing in the prelim to St Kilda, and then they would play in the grand final, let's say like 2008 to 2010. So I guess those would be my first memories. I'm actually not too sure specifically what my first game would have been, but maybe I remember those because it was so much more emotional watching those St Kilda rivalries.
Yeah, that's probably a crazy time period, always difficult. So, and I know this is never easy for some people because it's like picking your favorite child. What's a favorite player from the Western Bulldogs of the past? And do you have a favorite player currently on the Dogs list?
Oh, so from the past, when I was younger, it was always Brad Johnson. I guess he was someone that I looked up to in terms of being like a small forward. He was always happy. I think that was something that's underestimated. Like, obviously they called him the smiling assassin. So I just really liked the way that Brad Johnson carried himself. And now it's hard to say because I actually know a few of them. Like I know a couple of them now, like Anthony Scott and Will Hayes, Ryan Gardner, some of the guys that I played at Footscray with. But I'll say that Caleb Daniel was someone that, once again, I looked up to when I was, I guess, 16, 17, right before I was, I guess, in that draft age. Because for, smaller players, he's someone that everybody looks up to because he's, it was a pick 40 or something like that in those areas. So just someone to look up to and realize, okay, if he can do it, not that that's underselling Caleb Daniel because he's an incredible player, but he gives us inspiration to play the game.
Yeah. And for being somebody undersized, for the longest time, somebody his size was just not looked at all. So for him to be successful at his size and to continue to be successful, I completely agree. Like I think he's really helped diversify the game in footy completely. I think I know the answer to this one, but I always like asking this, especially I have a few people that are a little bit older coming up in some of my ones. Most memorable moment as a Western Bulldogs supporter?
It has to be 2016 grand final. Like that's the biggest no-brainer for us as well. That was a big significant moment for our grandfather too. Like there was a story that went out around in 2016 where there was someone missed the 54 grand final because it was his brother's wedding. So I'm not sure how that story unraveled, but eventually they got back to my grandfather, and that was my grandfather. So he was on the roster in that time from 53, 54, 55. And it was his brother's wedding, and he was the best man at it. So he couldn't actually go and watch the grand final, even though he was part of the team, because his brother was having a wedding on grand final day. So in 2016, that story was on the radio, it was on the TV. There's, segments of my grandfather on, I can't remember what channel it was, but he was on the news. And a woman, I think it was a Port Adelaide supporter, was like kind enough to give him a ticket, like front row seats. So for us, it was such a big moment for us, but to see our grandfather, actually go see a Dogs win, a premiership was incredible. So that wasn't just about the game for us. That was a family moment. That was like, we were able to get so many different tickets because everyone was looking out for us. So we got a lot of our family over there for that grand final. Like I'm not obviously our close immediate family, but extended family as well. So that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And just the family connection makes it even more special. Like that's absolutely fantastic. So we kind of talked about a little bit being a Western Bulldogs fan. I mean, I don't think I'm jumping too far to go. Last season was an incredible season for the Doggies, played really, really well, got all the way to the grand final. Yes, a little disappointing in the grand final for a lot of people, but what were your thoughts on the Doggies season? I mean, are you disappointed at all? You fell a little bit short? Or are you still super excited because this is still a very good core of that the Dogs have going for the next few years?
I think the Dogs had an incredible season. Luke Beveridge is an absolute genius. There's times where, obviously the Dogs lost 3 in a row before that finals, and I was like, you always think like, oh, maybe it's not our year again, and then somehow Beveridge finds a way to inspire his team, and we win 3 finals and very tough finals, traveling all around Australia. So we got a young group as well that's sort of just coming into play, I guess. Obviously, like you get to the age now where Bontempelli and McRae are starting to be, 1 and 2 obviously not literally 1 and 2, but up there in the top 10 in the league. So I think for us, just making that grand final was incredible. I think you've got to get to a point where you got to celebrate those little wins as fans. Like obviously you can get greedy and want to win a flag, but I think that what the Dogs fans need to be most proud of is the way that we're playing. It's still that quick handball release and getting it out and making sure like it's not long down the line and just try and take a pack mark. Like you've got players like Bailey Dale and Caleb Daniel, Bailey Williams at the halfback, trying to hit long 45s. And for me, that's really, really exciting football. So I think for us, we've got to hold our hat onto that and realize that, yes, we lost, but we're playing a good brand of football that could well and truly win us multiple premierships in the next few years.
Completely agree. Like I think the D's, the Tigers, man, there's so many good teams next year. The next year's 8 is going to be fun to get into because there's so many really, really good teams next year. And for me, we're in the off season. Season's over with, grand finals over. And I know with you've got your gridiron football to pay attention to, but have you been keeping an eye on the off season, or are you one of those? I'll find out later once it gets a little bit closer to the season.
No, I've been I was keeping track after every game. I wasn't watching many games here because obviously I'd have to get up early for a game ourselves. But, I'm keeping tracks. Like, obviously, the trade period has just come. Like, obviously, the Dogs lost Louis Young and Pat Lipinski, two blokes that I played with at the VFL. And as, disappointing as that might be as a fan, knowing those two and knowing how talented they are, like, I'm still getting a kick out of, that and knowing, okay, well, as selfish as it is, I want them to beat the Doggies, but being able to go, okay, these guys are going to get opportunity to show how talented they are. For me, that still gives me just as much excitement as anything else.
Yeah, and definitely. And the other thing you got to look at too is you have the father-son with Luke Darcy's son potentially being a very high draft pick that I think the Doggies will get the father-son advantage too. So your tall timber up forward it may take another increase next season for sure. So I think their moves have been really, really good. I think they've still got a really good core. That midfield is just ridiculously talented. So
yeah.
I think as long as they can keep most of that core there, they're going to be really, really good. Going and kind of jumping off that, what I don't always like saying it, but expectations for next year. Should we be in the grand final again, or are we at least make the finals and give yourself a shot type of kind of what are your expectations maybe for next season?
I think for me, being a fan and knowing the game, I don't like to be outcome based. I think the Dogs will make the grand final if they keep playing good football. And I think that Beveridge knows that and the team knows that. So I feel like if they just keep being bold with the way they play, the Dogs, they're quintessential with their hands, quick hands and then they're out. They don't like to stuff around with it or kick long down the line. So if they keep with that brand of exciting change lane football, then they will make the grand final. It's like they got the talent there to do it. They just need to make sure that they're executing the Western Bulldogs brand.
100% agree. Now, I'm going to have a little bit of fun. I think we've all thought about this of being the general manager or the list manager and having that opportunity to make moves. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're the list manager for the Western Bulldogs. You can trade or acquire any player in the AFL to join the Doggies. Who is it and why?
This actually conversation is one that my dad and I always talk about, and we usually go back to Darcy Moore out of Collingwood. I think that his dare to run and take intercept marks is something that the Dogs, obviously with someone like Easton Wood not retiring, but getting to the end of his career, if he could replace him, that would be pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's a very, very good one, especially. And with one of the things I think the D's really got kind of bad, the Doggies got bashed on a little bit was their defense wasn't as elite, say, as Melbourne. But I think if you would bring in Darcy Moore, you instantly get a massive upgrade there. A fun one. I just because of the so much discussion, the last 2 years, the grand final has not been in Melbourne. For you, it should always be in Melbourne, it's tradition, or did you kind of like the fact that the grand final saw different soil when it came to where it was played?
I want to take a selfish take here because being someone from Melbourne, I think that it should be in Melbourne. I think it's the Coliseum. There's 110,000 people that can fit in there. I think it's incredible. But it showed that, even if it's not there, it can still be an awesome event the last 2 years. Like, they were both great grand finals with great atmosphere. So, as much as it doesn't need to be at MCG, I think that the MCG, it's the home of football. And it's just a great environment. Like, being there in 2016 was incredible. But then that's obviously personal experience because I haven't been to a grand final in Brisbane or Perth. So.
Yep. And again, it really is personal opinion. Everybody's different. I've heard some people say have it be a traveling every 5 years. Like every 5 years, it goes to Adelaide, it goes to Perth, it goes to Sydney, it goes to Brisbane, and then kind of rotates. So I like that idea, but we'll have to see. I agree with you. It's hard to argue 100,000 people at the MCG is not one of the most awesome sites in all of sports. So for me, I kind of told you earlier, I am an avid AFLW supporter. I know my Swans are not in the comp currently, but I love watching the game. I think the competition has gotten better and better each season. I'm really excited for this year. So do you keep an eye on AFLW? And if so, what were your thoughts on the Doggies last season?
Yeah, I do. Well, obviously with the Dogs have a very strong team. And when I was at Footscray, we sort of, I guess, overlapped a little bit with in the gym. There would be times where they're finishing up their session and then we're about to rock up. So, yeah, I follow them closely. I know I grew up I guess, in the same league as Izzy Huntington, and
Mhm.
she's my age. So I actually got to play against her, when we were young. So seeing the quality of play that she was back then and is now, is obviously great advertisement for the game, and to know that, yes, it's just growing now, but it's going to keep growing and keep being incredible. Like, as you can see every year that it goes on, that it becomes more and more incredible. Like, we actually, a lot of us at Pro Kick, so Nathan Chapman, our coach, has a fair bit to do with the Richmond VFL team as well. The Richmond women's team as well. So we went to one of those games at Whitten Oval, and that almost felt for me like it was pretty special, because I was going back to the club that I was training at and playing at and seeing them play. It was a pretty good game as well. I think that it's an exciting time for women's football, and it keeps growing everywhere, and it'll keep growing.
Awesome. That is absolutely outstanding. It's great to hear. I completely agree. I had so much fun watching last year's season. Bittersweet, the Swans aren't in it, but they're coming very, very soon. So we're getting close to end, and I always like having some fun questions at the end, just because I like making you think a little. When you go to the footy, what's your go-to food at the footy?
Oh, meat pie for sure. Meat pie every day of the week.
All right. I actually made homemade ones for the grand final this year at home and put those online. That actually a lot of Aussies got a kick out of the fact that an American took the time to make homemade Aussie meat pies. That was a lot of fun. When you go to a game, where's your ideal place to watch the game? Is it behind the goal? Is it midfield? Where's kind of your ideal place to watch a game of footy?
I like to actually watch it like sort of second level in the middle, because I get to a point now. Well, I got to a point where, obviously, playing the game, where I was looking like forward of the ball or back of the ball, looking at how teams are setting up and seeing, because as someone that's been through the system, you'll hear comments like, how is this person so open, and, for me, I like to look at what's happening in front and behind the ball, because not that I'll know the answer, but I can, make an assumption of one team might have pressed up and they just made the wrong call, and that's how that guy got out the back, little things like that. So if I'm watching it as a fan of the game, that's where I want to sit.
All right. I got a couple of fun ones here that you might have done. Give me your best pitch on why an American should barrack for the Western Bulldogs.
It's a family club. It's more than just football. It's something that I have an emotional attachment to. My family does, and it's something that stays with me forever. Like, the Western Bulldogs isn't just about the game. It's about including others. Like, they do so much for the community as well, especially in the western suburbs. One of our players that I played with at Footscray, Ruben Williams, did a lot of work in the community, just with, I guess, not minority groups, but just making sure that people were included and had an avenue to play football. So if I was to say, barrack for the Western Bulldogs, it's not just about the game, it's about family, it's about culture, and it's something that goes well beyond what happens in the 120 minutes where you play football.
That's fantastic. I love that. Fun one here. Since you are playing American Gridiron, have you tried to show or convince any of your Gridiron teammates a little bit of footy?
I have, because I brought a Sharon over, so I tried to sort of convince them. I said to a lot of the guys like that play O-line or the wide receivers, I have no doubt if they trained for a couple of years, they could be very good in Australian rules football. They have a lot of the physical attributes to dominate players in Australian rules football. It's just obviously about the nous and not playing the game for a long time. So I've tried to convince them, but I think their love is so ingrained in the American football that I highly doubt that they'll make some sort of transition.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. You should probably use Mason Cox. Maybe you show them a little bit of Mason Cox a little bit. That might change their mind just the tiniest bit, but yeah, maybe. So my last question that I always ask everyone, because I think this is a lot of fun, because it really kind of shows where you go to, is favorite game of footy you've ever seen, whether it was live on television, doesn't matter if it's a Bulldogs game, favorite game of footy you have ever seen.
Western Bulldogs GWS prelim 2016. Like, that was one of the craziest games of football I've ever seen. And that play where Jason Jonasson runs through and Bontempelli kicks that goal, like, that play has implanted in my head. And I think that obviously that was the height of the Dogs GWS rivalry. My dad and I always used to say that whoever won that game was going to win the grand final. And I think if GWS won, maybe they would have won the flag. But I think that game it was just so exciting. And for us, like at that time, the Doggies hadn't won a prelim in so long. So that game meant more than anything. Obviously, the grand final was crazy, but I think the fact that game was so close and how we fought back, even that McRae goal that he kicked before before or after, I can't remember it anymore. But yeah, I just remember those two plays that implanted in my head very, very vividly.
Awesome. And an incredible game. I remember watching that game, just absolutely fantastic. And to hear Luke Darcy go absolutely nuts when Western Bulldogs had got into the grand final was just an amazing atmosphere. Aaron, this has been an awesome conversation. It is great to have a chat with an Aussie. Your love of the sport. I wish I could show more Americans the love of this sport. I truly enjoy this sport. Thank you again for joining me.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Fourth and Long fans, this has been the first of my series. Keep an eye out. I've got more coming. Aaron, thank you again. Good luck the rest of the season out at Richmond, and hopefully we'll talk again soon, okay?
Thanks, Donnie. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you guys again next week.